All right. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Claire Bradley, and I am the co-director of the DNA department here at the International Institute of Genealogical Studies. Our website is genealogicalstudies.com, if you have forgotten. And today is our first meeting of the year for the DNA department. And before we get into today's session, what I'd love to do is introduce a new member of staff. And you will see in the room we have Yehezkel Bund with us. And he has joined the school in a variety of capacities, one of which is sharing the directorship of the DNA and Genetic Genealogy Department with me. I'm delighted to welcome him aboard, and I'm just going to hand over to him for a minute so he can say a few words.
Hi, so my name is Yehezkel Bund. I'm going to be sharing with Claire the directorship of DNA. I did the DNA program at the Institute, and I've also studied DNA different places. My main interest in DNA is Ashkenazi Jewish DNA, dealing with endogamy. I have also a special interest in mtDNA, and I have a few DNA projects at Family Tree DNA. And I'm also learning now about ancient DNA, which I also find very interesting. So I'm very happy to be here and listen to the lecture tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From now on, we are going to be alternating doing the DNA meetings, and we will divide up that schedule between us as suits our other arrangements. And you will know in advance when you see in the Facebook group that which one of us is going to be talking in any given month. So today I've just prepared a short presentation on ancestry through lines. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. So I wanted to talk today about through lines, and I know we've talked about it before, but there's a lot of new people in the group. A lot of people see January as a time of the year to crack into a new project and get started again. And I feel that while this is a very powerful tool that's provided by Ancestry, it's also got a lot of pitfalls in it, and I wanted to talk through them. So let's have a look at this. So if you're like me, you periodically go on to your through lines on Ancestry and you have a look to see if there's any new matches. And I was interested to see there recently that I had a new match who was a putative child of my great-great-grandmother, Mary Swan, but not of her husband. And that interested me right from the start. Who was this guy and how did he connect to this man here who is a DNA match of mine? He shares a nice solid 143 centimorgans. So let's dig into why this is a bit of a dodgy call for through lines. So on the face of it, I've got my ancestor, Mary Swan, 2 times great grandmother. She lived from 1855 to 1936 in Ireland. And my direct line goes through her daughter Mary. And you can see there that I've got a couple of people tested there in my family tree who also link to this ancestor. That's one of my cousins. Now, Mary married a man called James Lawless. So you can see straight away why it is suggested that this person might be a match just on the name basis. Now, Mary is, as I say, my direct ancestor through Mary. And then I also have a number of DNA matches who come through Mary's younger sister, Josephine. And those people are all matching me exactly as I would expect them to for the proposed relationship. And the paperwork also lines up. So I'm satisfied that my research is correct and that Mary Swan is my ancestor. What I'm not satisfied is about this guy. So let's look at the red flags. The suggested child is called James Lawless, and he was born in 1891. Sorry, someone else just coming in there. And we see that he lived until 1957. Now, it also suggests that this James is only a half relation of mine, not a whole relation, meaning that he shares just one ancestor, not two. So now that is of course possible. Mary Swan could have had an extramarital relationship which produced this child, but here is where my wider knowledge of the family is relevant. And I obviously have to point out the obvious there, that if she had had an extramarital child, why would he have the name of her husband? So let's look at the family as established. This is an excerpt from my family tree. Mary Swan married James Lawless in 1876. She had a number of children, as you can see here. There's the Mary, who is my ancestor, and there's the Josephine, who was the other person there on the Thru Lines showing DNA matches. Now, Mary and James had a child already in 1891, but she was born in December. So theoretically, there is room for a second child to be born much earlier in that year. But then I have to look at when was this boy born, and he was born in May of 1889. So there is just about enough time for there to be another child in between them, but realistically, it's not very likely. But I also have some evidence from the 1911 census. So in Ireland, the 1911 census asked married women to account for how many years they had been married in their present marriage, how many children they'd had born alive, and how many of those children were still alive now. So if you do a quick tot here, I've got 11 children accounted for in this family, including, if you notice, 2 children called Bridget, the first of whom I have not identified a death for, but they did then 20 years later name another child Bridget, and I believe this Bridget died in infancy and they didn't register her death. And they also had 2 girls whose Mary was their first name, but this one, Mary Martha, she went by Martha all her life. So got 11 children. If we look at the census here from 1911, this is James Lawless and his wife Mary and a number of their children. My ancestor Mary was already married with her own family by this time. And we see here they've been married 34 years, which broadly matches with the number of years I know they were married. She's slightly off, but depending on what month. And then it says that she had 11 children and 7 of them are still alive. So I have 11 children already accounted for in this family, which is matching what Mary has herself self-reported as the number of children she had in her lifetime. So it seems really unlikely that this guy is going to be another child for this family. Now, furthermore, I already, if I just skip back for a second to this slide, I already know who this man is. And he is connected to me not on my father's side, and this is a paternal great-great-grandmother. He is connected to me on my mother's side of my family tree, and having gone back several generations on both of my parents' trees, I am confident that they are not related to each other. So this man here is the child of a woman who was the first cousin of my grandmother, my mother's mother. And that lady married a man whose surname was Lawless. So she was not a Lawless herself, but her husband was a Lawless. And this is their child here. So this man is he is my second cousin once removed based on this information. And I have documented this on paper. And the DNA, if we have a look forward, here is the shared Centimorgan project hosted on dnapainter.com. And this is when I put in the number 143 and I click on the relationship second cousin once removed, it gives me this lovely histogram of the number of submissions that they've had for this relationship. And you can see here that 143, they have had 791 submissions that are in the 50 centimorgan range around that. And so 68% of all cases for a second cousin once removed, he's in this category. As you can see, as we get lower numbers and higher numbers, the frequency drops. So this allows you to gauge how likely it is that your person is in the range that you're interested in. So I would say here that this guy is very comfortably in the range for a second cousin once removed. And I already know, of course, there are other possibilities of how he would be related to me, but because I have done the paper trail, I have ruled them out. And because I know my parents weren't related to each other, I can rule out the chance that there was a double relationship, which would have inflated the amount of DNA that this man and I would share. So it looks as well as if Thru Lines is just placing this information there on the basis of his name being the same as Mary Swan's husband, James Lawless. But there's one last thing that I want to check, which is Ancestry's side view technology. And just a reminder, side view is the tool which automatically sorts your matches into maternal and paternal, and sometimes it comes up with people who are unassigned. It can't figure it out. For this match, he is solidly sorted into a maternal bucket. And when I look at the shared matches, and I have subscribed to Ancestry's Pro tool, so I can see the pro version of that, I see a lot of people who connect through my mother's family, including my mother and her sister and 2 of their maternal first cousins. So all 4 of those people have centimorgan matches, which are very nicely in the range with this man to be their second cousin. Crucially, I don't see my own paternal first cousin, who I would reasonably expect to see in that relationship if she was related to this man as well. And I also have some other further out paternal relations. None of those matches from Josephine Lawless match this man either. So I did consider, because I wanted to be really thorough, that there was a possibility that this James Lawless could be a relation of my Lawless family, because that's a common name in Ireland. Lawless is a pretty common name. And so I did investigate my grandmother's first cousin's husband's family back a couple of generations. They're not in the same part of Ireland at all. So that really, really puts the nail in the coffin for me. If they were right there in the same place, I'd have to say, well, maybe there's a connection and I'm just not finding it. But I really don't think I am. So in summary, I think this whole hint on the through lines is coming just from this man's name, matching the name of my ancestor. But crucially, he's not matching through this line. He's just matching through the female line. It's not him at all. So what we're saying here is you need to do this level of homework with every through line match. And that might sound tedious. And particularly when you get out to further, more distant matches where you're looking at someone who, say, maybe shares 32 centimorgans, that could take a lot of time. But if you're serious about this, you do need to be sure about how these people connect. So this one didn't take me too long because I already had identified how this man was connected to me. But if it was a new match, someone who'd just come on Ancestry, maybe they don't have a family tree yet, you need to spend some time looking at those shared matches, ironing out what are the possibilities. And I've put into the chat there, and I'm just going to redo it now because, hang on, I'll just unshare the screen for a second. I've put into the chat a link, and I'm just going to put it in again because I think a couple of people came in at the end just after I had shared it. So this is a video I just watched today by Dana Leeds. Dana Leeds is the creator of the Leeds method of sorting your DNA matches. You may have seen her work before. And she has a YouTube channel. And I saw this little video and it was showing a new service on Ancestry. It's a beta tool that allows you to connect DNA matches from through lines into your tree straight away. So I haven't had a chance to prepare slides. I literally only saw it this afternoon. I thought, oh, that's really going to go with today's class. So I'm just putting it in the chat for you to have a look at it. It's only a little short 10-minute video, and we will come back to it in another session and talk about it in more detail. But it's a very nice tool, but you do still need to do the homework that I have showed you for that. So what I would like to do now is for us to have a little chat about it. It's only a short session, as I said, on the slides today. But I'd like to know, how are people getting on with Thru Lines? How are you using it? Are you finding these sorts of problems yourself? Or is it all working out nicely? So feel free to put something in the chat, or if you want to come on mic and talk, that's fine too.
Well, I can start. I have not used Thru Lines in Ancestry because I saw some initial problems early on with it. And I've also had problems with the similar sort of tool on MyHeritage, where I have 2 different Duffy lines, and they kind of merged them together to create what they thought were relationships.
Right. Yes. So I would say that on MyHeritage, there is a definite, this is their theory of family relativities. It's a very similar concept. And yes, I have, particularly for Irish ancestry, seen some issues where it thinks 2 similar looking surnames are the same surname where they're not. So I've had issues with my surname Bradley, and it's come up and suggested people who were called Brady. might be the same person in someone else's tree, and they're just not the same name at all. That's a complete error on their part. So I'm very cautious of it on my heritage. I do have a look just to see, but usually it's wrong. And that is also because they don't have a huge collection of Irish records there as well. So what's feeding in from record resources are limited. So yeah, the Thru Lines was a bit, when it started, I would say yes, it was a little bit more buggy than it is now. Maybe it's time to go back at and have another look at it, and just test it out. One slightly annoying feature about it is that it doesn't allow you to remove, if it comes up with a potential direct ancestor, it puts them in a green box you'll have seen, and it doesn't allow you to say, no, that's not right, after you analyze it. Whereas the theory of family relativity is perfectly happy to accept that, no, it's wrong. And you can say, no, this is wrong. Don't show me this again. I like that about it. I'd love to see a way for on Ancestry to do that, because it slightly irritates me. I don't know about you, but when I look at the list of Thru Lines and I see these people who are invented, and some of them come from a particular relation who's a bit of a name grabber in my family tree, and she just goes, oh, that person must be right, they must have the right name, and she adds them in, and I can often tell just by the way she's added them in that it's going to come from her tree, the suggestion, and I go, it's not gonna be right. You always got to do this homework. Deb in the chat says you've got several Thru Line matches that you can't connect with the reference tree via any documentation. Right, so probably what's happening there is it's coming from someone's tree rather than the connection is coming through someone's tree where they don't have any sources. I often see that, like, that, when I see, because the Thru Line isn't just feeding in from a DNA match, it's also looking at the trees of users on Ancestry. Anyone else?
Yes, I haven't found them to be very reliable, so I don't even bother with that. I mean, there's so many other methods,
Yes.
Just standard practices which are work,
Yeah.
as opposed to, I don't think their algorithm, whatever it is they're using, is accurate enough or has enough variables in it in order to give you a reasonable assessment of what they're suggesting. So I don't even bother with it. I've looked at a couple and just says, well, that's not worth my time. So
yeah,
I haven't.
That's really fair enough.
Yeah, I don't have any. I don't have all my stuff in my heritage. Although there's DNA stuff there, I haven't uploaded a tree and all that sort of stuff. So I haven't used that.
Well, you can have a small tree if you don't have a subscription, but I think it cuts you off at 250 people. So that's quite small realistically when you get into the sort of work we're doing. I think we're all past 250 people a long time ago. And I did for a party, a family party, I actually did a sort of a descendancy tree for one set of ancestors, and there was 250 people in that tree alone. It was a family that were particularly prolific. They'd had 4 children, but one of their daughters had 12 children. So there was just from that branch there was a lot of people, yeah, so I mean it's worth it. I would say it is worth your while having a look at it, Joe, and coming back to it periodically. But as you say, there's a lot of tried and true tested methods that don't involve Thru Lines. But I suppose what Ancestry is trying to offer is another method for people to look at that might be a quick way, and because I've done so much work on my family tree, when I look at the Thru Lines, I'm able to make an assessment quite quickly about something or not. But sometimes it has found me new people, and when I've gone through and validated it, I've accepted it that it was correct. And what Dana Leeds' video is showing you there is how once you've done that homework, how you can quickly add the people into your tree then, which is nice, a nice speedy method, because you can spend a lot of time just adding information into your tree online. And, that's something that I don't like to spend lots of time on. I mean, I already feel I give Ancestry a lot of money and I get a lot of use from them, but my full tree is not on Ancestry's site. My master tree is offline. And yes, there's a good portion of it online, but I don't spend lots of time adding in the sources because I have better things to do with my time. But what I do say to people is, and I have it on my profile, I say, my tree is fully sourced and I'm happy to share, the backup for anything that you want to ask me about, by messaging or whatever. But I'm not spending the time putting all of this in on Ancestry and linking to every single resource and so on. It isn't a good use of anyone's time. Of course you want to have some sources in there so that people know you're serious, but finding every data point for every person who's in your tree, you'd spend the rest of your life doing it.
Well, I had put in a lot of sources early on with, all of the church records and things of that sort, into the gallery, so that people could see that. Later, what I find out when I had lost some of my stuff, but it was on Ancestry, there was no way for me to download all of my source documents from Ancestry. I had to do it individual by individual.
By one. Yeah.
Which of course is crazy, so
yeah.
the good news is I had them backed up, but when I backed them up, for some reason they lost their file name and they became this gibberish file name. So I have hundreds of records that the file name is gone, and they just have the XYZ123 thing in there, which means I have to go through every single one and reevaluate it and I have a naming convention that I use, for the files, and so it's become a problem with sharing it online, keeping it here, backing it up, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm always looking for perhaps some new tools or something that can help organize that a little bit better. I'm looking at one now. I forget what it's called. It's some sort of archive tool for genealogists to back stuff up on, but I haven't completed exploring that yet.
Okay. Well, please do post something in our student Facebook group when you have. Let us know what you found and see whether it's any good. Debbie just comments in the chat there that Family Tree Maker, if you use that software, will pull sources from Ancestry as a backup for offline storage, which is very useful. But of course, not everybody uses Family Tree Maker. I adopted a software called GenoPro about 25 years ago, and I just got attached to it. And I've just kept using it. It's very nice visual. I like it to use it for when I'm working out how people are related to each other who are DNA matches. I like to do it because it's quite visual. I'll just show you on the screen what I mean. We'll go back to this slide. So say I was looking at DNA matches of these people here. I would just do the lines down. I might not even put in the names of the other parent, just do a drop line down. And then I would color, say there's a descendant of Mary there down 3 generations. I would color that person in yellow if they were from Ancestry. And I'd put as a second name the number of centimorgans that they shared. And then I might move over and say, okay, well, there's a child descended from William over here, but they're on MyHeritage. And I might pick a different color from MyHeritage and put the number of centimorgans for that. So I would have then a number of people. It's a bit like some people use Lucid Chart for this, but because I already had this software, I thought, no, this is going to work very nicely for me because I can color a box around the person and put in the information that I need. And I use it quite regularly then for DNA work when I'm sharing things with clients to working. Okay, cool. Joe says that the archival tool he was talking about is called Kindex. Interesting. We will have a look at that. Does anyone else have any other comments on Thru Lines?
This is Larissa.
Hi, Larissa.
Hi. Yeah, I use Thru Lines, but the first thing I check is that if all of the children of a supposed ancestor, if I have them already as children of this ancestor, that's the first thing I check. And then the other thing that I've kind of used them for is where I know who somebody's grandparent is, but I'm not sure which one of the children are right. So I will put in like the maiden names to see if I have matches.
Yes.
This guy's wife or this guy, if there's several brothers and I'm not sure which brother it was, then I look at who their wives were and see if I have anything on Thru Lines with those names.
Yeah, no, that's a very smart way to do it. Yes, and lots of people would do that. They check the maternal lines to go with it. And sometimes when you're doing the evaluation process in Thru Lines, sometimes you get something extra from the tree that you don't see it when you look at it another way. So it might show you a little bit of detail that it doesn't appear, it gives you a bit of their name or something like that. I've seen examples like that. So it sometimes it's worth having a look, but I totally understand if you're not interested in working with them. It's just, I like to show all of these different possibilities for people so that they can pick and choose the ones that suit them. You know, we've got a lovely smorgasbord of tools available to us on Ancestry. And of course, we don't just focus on Ancestry in this class. We will always focus on all of the different DNA sites and the different DNA tests, of course. And I know that's something that Y is going to be working on. He's going to be doing some classes for us on mtDNA and endogamy and things like that, which are getting into quite advanced techniques, I suppose. But we will flag those in advance so that people know if they want to come and watch a talk on that. So before I pause the recording for today, I'd just like to thank you for coming to today's class, which was of course presented by the International Institute of Genealogical Studies, and you can find us at genealogicalstudies.com. Thanks for watching.